Are you a Too Opinionated subscriber? Did you know there's 15 million podcasts out there? And of those 15 million, only 38,000 have enough viewers to be listed on IMDb, the entertainment database. Of those 38,000, Too Opinionated is ranked number 82. Father and son team. Most of those podcasts that are ahead of us are the big companies, Disney, Marvel, Joe Rogan, those type of podcasts. We have over 600 episodes, actors, musicians, producers, directors, writers, anything that you could possibly want in the entertainment world, we're covering it. And we'd like your support. If you're not subscribed, it's easy to do and it's free. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Just go there and click that subscribe button. Helps us a ton. If you're listening, wherever you listen to your podcast from, subscribe there. It'll help us so much. And please go to imdb.com and check out our page. Look up the Too Opinionated Podcast, imdb.com, and just look around the page. It really helps us a ton. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for your support. And until next time, bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated. So excited today. I've got actress Greta Carew-Johns with me. So welcome, Greta.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Mike.
We were talking offline. We were supposed to do this last week, and somebody had an earache, and it wasn't you. I don't want to point any fingers, but it wasn't you.
No, it wasn't me.
I was being a big baby. You know, it doesn't take much for me to get thrown off my game. Any type of illness, I'm done.
Yeah. Is that right?
I'm a big baby.
Well, the man cold has been known to be one of the most serious illnesses of modern times.
It's really underappreciated just how serious it is.
That's right. That's right.
Well, Greta, welcome to the show. I was so excited to talk with you, and you were so nice to come back on.
Oh, thank you.
You know, pleasure. We managed to do it this week. We've made it this far.
Yes.
We already beat last week.
There you go. We're winning. We're winning.
So let's start this way, Greta. Tell me a little bit about what got you into acting. Why'd you want to become an actress?
Ooh, so my mum actually reminded me of the moment that it sparked that I'd completely forgotten about. She only reminded me a couple of weeks ago. And she was completely right. There in year 10, we had to, in English class, we had to do an oral presentation. Oh. We all had to read To Kill a Mockingbird, great book.
Yeah.
And we had to pick a character, write an inner monologue of the character at a certain point in the story.
Okay.
And
that sounds like a tough assignment for like 10.
Yeah, it was. But I chose Scout, the daughter in it.
Yep.
And I came into the class with overalls. I had a full Southern accent. I did not break it. And I really just went 100% on it. And the feeling of that, like I had my little palm card notes, things I didn't use. They were completely off to the side. Everything was in the memory. And it was just the most nerve-wracking, but the best feeling ever. And my mum said to me, so that was how I felt. But she said, when I saw you do that, like when I was practicing with her, they were sort of like, huh, okay, this is
good at that.
something else. We were like this. So that was sort of the time back all those years ago. And that's sort of what that feeling came up again much later on. So I didn't really start to look into this until halfway through my degrees, when I sort of got the bug again. Again, it came from nowhere. And I just ended up looking for good classes in the city that I was in and started going to them every week. I wanted to cancel. It just purely the nerves. But every time I went, I had such a good time. And I thought there's something in that it's like you got to jump over that fear thing, the comfort zone that everyone talks about, but it's so true. So I had to really decide whether to, go beyond the precipice. We're on the precipice, and whether to go beyond that or not. And so I didn't do much about it until, after finishing my degrees, I became a lawyer. I practiced for a couple of years, and then it came back again. So then I did some more classes. I secured an agent, and I did little bits and pieces. There wasn't a lot of industry in Brisbane, Australia, where I'm from.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't getting the fulfillment that I desired from being a lawyer. So I quit and found my way to Vancouver. That's a very truncated version of it.
Yeah. So a few things, a few comments on that.
Please.
When I started this podcast with my son, it was 4.5 years ago, and it's difficult to tell on the podcast, but I'm an introvert. That's just me. So I was very nervous about doing this, and it didn't let up for the first several weeks, maybe months, but definitely weeks, where so every time I had an interview, I got nervous and just didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I just don't want to do it. But as soon as I got, into the interview, I loved it and had such a good time. And eventually, the nerves kind of quit. So now it does, I don't get apprehensive about getting on camera. So I get that, because it's almost something, it's something you want to do, but you got to force yourself to do it.
Exactly.
At least until you get comfortable.
Totally. And that's right. Now when I book a job and go and said, I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm more nervous about meeting new people. It's not the acting part of it, and not the vulnerability that you have to be in. That I don't really have a problem with anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so people.
what did your mother think about you stepping away from, being a lawyer to starting over, basically?
Look, my parents were very supportive. Obviously, they were apprehensive. They'd much prefer for their daughter to be secure and in Brisbane. But I'd worked so hard to get there, but they saw how unhappy I was, and they basically said, look, you'll use these skills. This is not a waste. You will use these skills. You've learned a lot of things. You're going into this with life experience. And they just said, go for it. Dad just said, you got to give it a go.
That's good parenting.
Mum wanted to be an actress
really?
Herself, actually. So I think there was a little bit of her that was like, yay, do it. So, and they're my biggest fans. Them and my boyfriend, my sister, biggest fans.
Well, they should be.
Well,
you need to have a talk with them if they're not.
Exactly.
Now that's terrific. But how scary to leave a job that you're good at, that you've worked for, and just move countries to get into something completely different that is also got it's got a high rate of failure. Yeah.
I have been thinking about this recently, and I was like, I don't know how I did that, because people, my good friends are like, you're so brave to do that. And I'm like, okay, but I didn't really give myself any credit for doing that. And that's classic me. I think I was just so determined, and that there is no part of this, there is no part of my plan that I will fail. I only fail if I stop doing it. So it was just, all right, what's the next step? So I took a very practical, very systematic approach to it that I guess didn't really allow me to worry too much about that. I don't know how I worry about everything.
Yeah, that's the way to do it, though. Keep yourself busy enough and just kind of moving forward, so you don't have time to really think about what you're doing.
Yeah, it was sort of, this is the only option. This is the best option. And is this what you want? Then go and get it, kind of thing. So
yeah, I love that. What did you not? So from that, the report that you did, from that point, did you not do theater or anything through school? So it was like, I did this and I liked it. I did a good job on it, but I'm going to push it aside.
Yeah, I didn't end up doing, I could have done drama at school. I didn't, I've never enjoyed theatre. So we did a little bit in the sort of younger years of grade 8 and 9 and things like that. And I just never really enjoyed that. And so I think maybe in my head, that's what acting was.
Mm-hmm.
And theatre's had a very different, and I've never done a professional theatre, so I've never had that experience that some of my colleagues have who love theatre.
Right.
So it was sort of a bit out of the box, that oral presentation that I did. It wasn't related to being a character and pretending. It was just, you are that person. So it felt like a separate thing. But yeah, I just thought, great, got myself an A, move on. It didn't really occur to me that that was something to pursue.
So what was the change? What was the epiphany, if you will, that you had, that you're kind of like, okay, I'm not happy with this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go into acting, which I haven't done.
Yes. I'm questioning all my life choices. No, you're exactly right. It wasn't a moment epiphany. It was a slow sort of grind that I felt. I was very depressed at work and very anxious at work.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of things by being a lawyer that make you a good lawyer, but make it life very hard. You've got to be very critical and analytical of everything. And if you take that and perfectionist, if you take that into life, it can be quite damaging and difficult. And so while I was working, I booked just a tiny little role on Thor. And
oh yeah, you were like one of the VIP guests.
One of Jeff Goldblum's sort of posse.
I mean, if you're going to do a bit part, that's a pretty good one.
Is it? Yeah, exactly. It was I guess it came down to sort of that. I was still working at the time. I'd taken off 2 days, and I had an opportunity to, take on another matter. And I was like, I'm shooting, and that sort of feeling of like, nah, that's not what I'm doing. And I had to be I had to be up or down the Gold Coast, which was an hour away from me, at 4 o'clock or up at 4 o'clock. And, everyone's like, oh my God, it's so early. And I was like buzzing, jumped out of bed. Like, I couldn't be more excited to do that. And I thought, every day that I get out of bed and have to go to work, I am just like, this sounds very dramatic, but I was like wishing I'd get hit by a car on the way. That's probably to the extreme.
I totally get that.
Yeah,
because you found what you were.
Yeah,
you found your calling.
Yeah, and that made it worse from there, because I couldn't see the good in. Because there were things I liked about being a lawyer, definitely. But then from then on, I could really see no good in it, because you tasted what.
That's right.
It could be like, and I wanted to be where Chris Hemsworth was, and where Tom Hiddleston was, and where Jeff Goldblum were. So I think it was by the end of that. I think it was the end of that year. So a few months after shooting that, I resigned. And then I just.
A lot of courage.
Yeah. It was nerve-wracking. But at that point I was, and people were like, why don't you just try to do it at the same time? You can just take a little bit of time off work. And I was just like,
you end up not doing justice for either career.
Exactly. Yeah. And being a lawyer takes it, and the type of law I was in takes a lot of focus, and you don't want to be giving your clients half of that either. or your colleagues.
No, because if someone gets a lawyer, it's for a pretty important reason. You don't want somebody that's only half in.
Exactly. Yeah. So
I love that, because I was similar with the podcast in that I spent 30 years running call centers and never enjoyed it ever. Yeah, I didn't hate it, but never enjoyed it. It was just, it was just what I did. I got out of college. That's what I did with that. And then we did this, my son and I, just as a way to connect. And I found something that I absolutely love to do.
Yeah.
And then at that point, it almost became impossible to do anything else.
Yes. Yeah. That's exactly right. That's exactly how I felt.
Did you get to spend any time with Jeff?
He was one of the most generous with his time. He just, I don't know if this was annoying to the other cast members, but he would talk right up until action. Like, some people just want to take a moment. He would just be yabbering on the conversation.
Sounds right.
And then it'd be action. Sometimes he'd finish what he was saying. which was pretty funny. He actually walked around to everyone, all through the extras, all the background, anyone there, and was just chatting to them and talking about our costumes because they were so incredible. So he was very generous with his time, and then just was able to just jump into a scene at a moment's notice. So he was probably the closest that we got to, but certainly saw I saw Chris Hemsworth a number of times, and
he's Australian, isn't he?
He is Australian. He is Australian, and I just was gobsmacked at how massive he was. I know he trains for that particular role, but I was just like, your arm and he's doing push-ups before scenes. I saw him do once, because that sort of
pump it up,
the muscles or whatever. But I was thinking to myself, it's fine. They're huge. Yeah, no, they were just, it was very rewarding to watch them, their process, and they were just having so much fun. The whole process looked like a great day job, even though it was long or whatever. Yeah, it was, but they got to play a character as well as being themselves and having fun. So I thought, yeah, that's really where I want to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did they let you keep the costume?
No, and I wouldn't have asked to, because
been a good Halloween costume though.
We don't really do Halloween in Australia.
Do they do it in Canada?
They do in Canada. It's big in Canada. It started to become a thing in Australia as it sort of got a bit more commercialized. They've jumped onto it. And also it's really hot in Australia at Halloween time. And what I had on was it went right up to my neck, full. It was like a full gown.
Yeah, that's
and then a wig, and I was dying on set. I had to take the wig off at one point because I was like, I'm going to faint because it's so hot, and really long hair. But having said that, you're quite right. It would have been a great Halloween costume, but I just couldn't see it in my wardrobe at the time.
They probably wouldn't let you have it anyway, which I think
who knows. That's right. I mean, I don't know where they would use that again, but
Halloween.
You're right. I always wonder where all the wardrobe goes, because some things you can use, some things I just can't see where you would use that again.
Yeah. Well,
cool,
you say that, but they probably store it, and then 10, 15, 20 years from now, somebody will be like, that's the thing we need for this. That's
right. Or modified in some way. So I think they're geniuses in the costume department. So I'm sure they will come up with it.
Have you got to play a lawyer in anything yet?
No, not yet.
I mean, did they realize you were an actual lawyer?
I mean, my agent puts that forward because whatever sort of life experience you have, whether you are an actual nurse or a doctor or whatever you have, there is something in you that is that. So naturally, I would be more castable as a lawyer, because of the legalese and the terms they use in the script would come more naturally to me. People can put on a lawyer excellently, but there's often, they say, there's just something inherent about that person because they've had that practice before. So I'm still waiting on, I don't think I've actually auditioned for a lawyer role.
Isn't there like family law is done in Canada, right?
Yes. I
thought it was a rule you had to be on that if you were in Canada and an actress.
I'd been hoping so. I haven't auditioned for that. I don't know why. I'll be getting onto my agent immediately. No, there is always a reason. My agent always puts me forward for anything that it could be close, and she really wants to see me in a legal role as well. So I'm sure there's
blast. I'd like to see that. Then
it'd be fun.
Really know, like if you got some of the negative feelings in that role just because you're playing a lawyer, then you'd really know.
Then I'd really know. I think I'd probably like it because there'd be something familiar, but I wouldn't have to deal with the real client or have to deal with the fallout at the end of the day.
Yeah,
and it wouldn't go on for 2 years. So that's.
So we enjoyed you on Supergirl. You had an appearance.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and then A Million Little Things, which is one of those shows that you can only watch one episode at a time because it's so emotional.
Yes.
But you're really good on there.
Oh, thank you. Yes, played played a British girl having an hysterical crying time.
Is it easier to do a British accent or like a Southern American accent? It's coming from somebody that couldn't do any accent other than this one that
it's hard to say now. I think probably to stick in it would probably be a British accent in terms of a London accent, because, or a more upper class London accent, because it's similar to Australian but less lazy. So if I just enunciate my words, all of a sudden I sound a little bit more British.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So it's closer to my Australian accent, whereas a Southern one is slower and a little bit more relaxed like Australian, but I've had less practice of that, and I guess I haven't grown up with that as much, but I really want to play like a Southern belle, that would be really fun to play. As soon as you get into the character or start speaking with someone with the same accent, it's a lot easier. Just doing it sort of in a vacuum on your own, it's harder to know if you're doing it correctly. But I was lucky in A Million Little Things that Chris Gere, he's British.
Oh,
so
right.
In between scenes, I was just speaking to him and sort of making sure I was listening and speaking the same. I was the only, they had their Alison Miller had her natural accent, he had his, and I was the only one. It looked like I was a method actor or something, because I was keeping in it. I didn't want to have any Australianisms creep in. But yeah, it was good to have, because he has a beautiful accent. So that was nice to be able to have someone there.
Everybody loves the British accent.
It's so, well, it depends which one.
Well, that's right. That's right.
There's some hilarious ones, but I do love there's so many great English accents. Yeah. But the refined, not quite the Queen's English, but the very refined is it's understandable by everyone, because you're really enunciating all the words.
It's very fancy.
Yes, it's very fancy. That's right.
Now that I thought you were really good on both of those, which was fun to kind of see. You're starting to pop up on some things now, which is kind of cool.
Starting to gain a little bit of traction.
My oldest, the day after Thanksgiving, immediately all she watches is Christmas movies, and she said you were in one. Yes,
I was in Meeting Mr. Christmas.
Yeah, and that was recent, right? Like maybe last year or year before.
Yeah, it was sometime in November last year it came out. Yeah, we shot that in February last year, though, in real snow.
See, that's the way it should be shot.
I agree.
I don't understand this shooting Christmas movies in the summer or vice versa. I mean, why would you do that? It's miserable.
I know. I don't. I guess it's probably more expensive because it's more difficult to do, and you don't know if it's going to snow and how that will affect movement and transport and things. But I agree. Ideally, it's so much nicer to have real snow and not have the perspiring when you're in sweaters and stuff.
Not that I could be an actor, but if I was, and I was in a Christmas movie that they're filming in the summer, the audience would hate me. They wouldn't trust me because I'd be sweating so much.
Yeah, exactly. They'll be like, what's happening here? They'll think it's a mystery because you're hiding something. Yeah, that's right.
So you have been on a scripted podcast for a while now, right?
Yes, we're coming up to we've finished season 3 and we're coming up to the release of season 3.
What's the name of that one?
Escaping Denver.
What's that about?
So the guys that created it, Brady and Mike, another Mike, they are really into conspiracy theories, and that's how they sort of, and apparently there is a conspiracy theory about what is under the Denver airport.
Really?
Yeah, that there's some sort of government secret tunnel or something like that. So they had Brady sort of was talking about that, and then Mike, the writer, really started to put it together. So basically, I play Sara, who with Brady, the creator, he plays Noah. We send voice messages to a podcaster. It's a podcast within a podcast. Yeah. Now, the podcaster gets these random messages from us. We wake up trapped miles below the Denver airport in cells. And we have phones with no signal, but Noah comes up with the idea, let's just record it. And if eventually we get to put these messages out, maybe someone will come find us. And that's sort of where they catch us sending out the messages.
Yeah.
So we just go through this, it follows us going through a labyrinth of, various creatures and horrific scenes that.
So have you been underground for 3 seasons?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I need to listen to this podcast. That sounds
we can't get out. We really can't get out.
I like the fact that there's creatures and stuff down there.
Oh, and I'm shocked every time I read it. I'm like, how did you come up with this creature? And they'll have all these sort of, I call them nerd references, because these guys are so well read and well watched of every comic, movie.
Oh, that's my people.
Any peculiar reference, they know. They're your people for sure. So they have such a library in their brains, basically, of what all these things could be. So they've mixed some animals and creatures, they've made up things, they've got a reference from here and added it there, and I'm just in awe of how they've come up with this. And what I love recently is I think it's on the Escaping Denver Instagram page, they've started to do very controversial with AI, but where you type into AI a description of the picture you want, they've started doing that so that when you're listening, you can see that's what you imagined, having that actually really helps me. I'm like, oh, that is what I imagined. And I kind of like that thing. That sort of use of it adds to the story. So I hope people are liking that as well.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I gotta listen to that, because that sounds awesome.
I think you'd like it. I think you'd like the creators too. They're a hoot.
Yeah, I always said, part of the reason I was unhappy with the career I was in was because I had all this useless knowledge just stuck in my head and nowhere to use it.
Yeah.
And then when I got on the podcast, I was like, now all this trivia comes into play.
Yes. Yes. That's right. That's right.
No, that sounds awesome. Is it just ongoing, or is there an end in sight?
I have been told there's at least 5 seasons, they think.
Nice.
I believe.
It's nice when you're like in like the 3rd season, you got at least a couple more.
Well, I mean, that's, yeah, exactly. When you're binging through them and you're hoping there's more, I don't know what form that's going to take. I don't know if it'll be the same thing or take a different turn. I don't know what characters will be involved, but they're thinking that there will be a story of some description that goes on for that long. Fingers crossed,
Have they thought about turning that into a TV show? I'd watch it.
They have. I believe they are talking, they are working on a pitch, or they've pitched. I'm not privy to all that information, but it's sort of a spin-off it, and you see it from someone's perspective. I haven't spoken to them in detail, but I'm excited to see I do believe they're working on something along those lines.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. It would be really cool to watch, because people love podcasts, but they also love visual. Yeah. Everyone loves to see something. Seeing is believing, isn't what they say?
I mean, you're already voicing the character, so if your character's on the show, you should be able to play her.
Yeah, I don't know which angle it'll take, whether it's from the outside people or inside, but certainly it's I'd jump at the chance to actually, if they can get sets, like even little bits of sets of what is described, it would just be phenomenal.
Yeah. I think I read that you had done a pilot with Alice Eve in it.
Yes.
Right? What was that about?
It was, what's the name of it?
In my head, I'm wanting to say Early Edition, but that's probably wrong.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay, good. It was like a reboot, right? Like a remake.
Yeah. It was to be a reboot of the Early Edition, which was made, I want to say, 30 or more years ago.
Yeah, it was like early 90s or something.
Yes. I think it was about then. Basically, the premise was that the lead was a guy at that time. Alice Eve took over, sort of a gender flip for that role, but it was a journalist who, for various reasons, got a newspaper that was tomorrow's newspaper from a cat. I don't know if that's the most
that's
important
right.
point.
I remember this show
Yeah.
now. Yeah,
and it would tell him what was going to happen the next day, and he'd have to go and stop those things happening. So there'd be a burst water main that killed people on this street or whatever, and he'd have to go and work backwards from there and figure out how to make sure that didn't happen. And he'd carry around the newspaper with him, and the news would change as he fixed things. So they sort of flipped that up a little bit, but kept to the same story. They had a new writer on it, and Alice Eve was to play the lead in that one. I was in the first story, so they were saving. My husband was trying to kill me, if I remember correctly. So inconvenient. So they sort of came to save me. Basically, I was in one of the news stories. Effectively, is where that pilot went.
Well, that's a shame that it didn't get made, because that.
It is a shame. It is a
No,
shame.
that
Everyone
sounds like a
felt
good
quite
show.
confident. Everyone felt quite confident on set. I don't know anything further, just that it wasn't going ahead. But I certainly really enjoyed working with those guys. It was a fun shoot. They were there for a couple of weeks. I was there for a few days, but it was also a big money shoot. So we shot on this amazing yacht, and that was.
I mean, it's not terrible.
That was fun to be able to see. You always get a little bit more with more money. You see the more crew and the bigger locations, and you have more takes and those sort of things. So it's all a really good learning process. And to be able to watch the other actors and how the director works and the whole crew works is always really rewarding. It's great if there's something that comes out of it, but if not, at least I have that experience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, at least you get some positives out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Not bad. That's not bad. So the other one was the pregnancy scheme. That came out this year?
Yes, just June 11 that aired on Lifetime.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's another one that my oldest watched, because she's normally it's not November yet, so she's still watching for that. But she's a big Lifetime fan, so yeah, she said that one was really good because it was kind of twisty.
Yes, yeah, it kept you on your toes a little bit more, and to film that one was a lot of fun. I had to be pregnant in it, so I had a sort of silicone fake belly on the whole time. It was a lot more physicality and a little bit of stunts, which I hadn't done before. So,
if you were method, you just would have kept that on after you left set.
Exactly. But when I pulled that off, the sweat just dripping down, because it was so, we'd have some winter clothes on and it'll be a whole thing. But yeah, I joked that was the way to a six pack, is just I think there's like putting like plastic around you or something is a weight loss thing.
Right. Yeah,
I don't recommend it. I do not recommend it. But yeah, it was a whole experience, and funnily enough, my sister had just had a baby at the time, so I'd been talking to her about, I've not been pregnant before. How do you walk? How do you stand? I can observe, but what does it feel like? So I was talking to her about it a little bit. The interesting thing was, as soon as you put that on, you're immediately sort of hold your belly,
right?
Like I don't know if it's a
natural instinct,
a maternal instinct, or I couldn't really place it, but I found myself, I'd be chatting to someone and just sort of holding or rubbing my belly. Like, this is bizarre. So that was a super, super fun, super interesting, and a lot learned on that one.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Have you had any desire to step behind the camera at some point?
I do. Yes, at some point. I think my skills would lend themselves to producing. It's very business and organization and that sort of thing. I do think I have a bit of an eye for directing. I really enjoy when I would just do tapes with friends and things like that, and you see a different way to play it, or you can imagine it shot in a different way. I'm a very visual person, so I think it could lend itself to that. But boy, their job is, it's so big. they have to be in every facet of it. And although I'd love that, I don't think I'm there yet. There's so much for me to learn. About, I never went to film school. I don't have a background of, there's so much, need to spend so much more time on set to feel ready for that. But that's certainly something I think I would enjoy. But I have so much respect for directors. They're just,
oh yeah, that's not
it's incredible.
What
not at all.
You need a TV show that has been on for several seasons, and then they just ask you to direct it.
Yes.
Because then you have all that support.
That's right. And then you're just like, yeah, do that differently, do this, jump back in, you're done.
Is there a genre that you haven't got to do that you'd like to try?
I'd like to do some quite serious drama.
Yeah.
I've done some more lighter things. I think I'd like to do some real gritty sort of HBO Max sort of HBO sort of style things, Ozark, or something that has real grit in it. I'd also like to do, at the complete other end of the spectrum, some comedy. I just love comedy. I think
you'd be really good with comedy.
Yeah,
it's funny just talking with you.
Oh, thank you. That's my natural storytelling vibe, is to make everything funny. I deal with heartache by making fun of it. That's my humor. That's a lot of sarcasm, which they say is the lowest form of wit. But if that's all you got,
That's right. You got to have something.
Exactly.
No, I think you'd be really good in a comedy. I hope you get a chance to do that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So okay, so what's the future hold? Do you have like a plan of things you're going to try, or ways you're going to try to improve on what you're doing? What's next?
I think things are a little bit up in the air at the moment, but my goal is still to be able to get well known enough and well respected enough that I can be working on really big films and really big TV shows, and just making really quality work that people just love the stories. I want to be in shows that people are just like, when's it next coming out? What happens?
Those are the best ones.
The followings, and just to work with really great people. That's really my goal. I love to see what comes out of it, and I want to be a storyteller, but I also really love the feeling on set, collaborating with people, and when you figure out a new way to do something, I want to be able to do that on a big scale with some of the best in the business.
Yeah.
So the path there, it's not a straight path though. So
no, because you probably have
stopping and changing.
You got to get a role on some of those bigger projects first. Maybe it's a small role, but you get in there, and then they like what you do, so they give you a bigger role, and then it just keeps going up from there until you're the star.
Yes, that's exactly right. So it'll just be a work in progress, and I think there'll be a little bit more time spent in Canada, and then hopefully moving into US productions in the US. And I'd also really like to do some productions back home in Australia.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, because they've got a pretty good entertainment industry over there.
It's getting better all the time.
Yeah.
It's the reason I chose to leave anyways, because a lot of the things they do get, they cast from North America anyway.
Right.
The American shows, they have some Australian shows that are shot there. I want to be in more worldwide things, which is why I sort of go towards the American style things, because that's the language of Hollywood. That's the big one.
Have you got to come to the States at all? Have you visited here?
Yes. We most recently I was in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, that's right in my neighborhood.
Yes.
I was in Nashville in October, and it took a little over 4 hours, I think, to get there. From
driving. Yeah.
That's not too far.
That's not bad at all. Yeah.
What were you in Nashville for?
My boyfriend actually went on a golf trip.
Oh, nice.
Yes, he's turning 70. Golf just sounds like such an old man sport. No, he and the lads went down with a couple of friends, and I jumped onto the back of that trip. So after they'd finished, he said, come down and we'll check out Nashville. We have some friends who are musicians moving there soon, and we thought we'd time it correctly, but they'll be there a little bit later. We thought we'd just go check it out.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm doing that. My wife works for Live Nation, so she
Oh,
does a lot of the musical stuff, and she's traveling
yes.
all the time. And that's what I do. I kind of jump on to the end of it.
Yeah.
I'll go out and hang out wherever she's at.
Yeah.
She's working, but we'll have our evenings free, and then we can go and run around.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's it was a really, really good plan. And yeah, we loved it. It was great.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So if you come to the States, are you thinking LA? Are you going to Atlanta? I mean, there's a few places that have pretty good film.
There are a lot of
New
good
York,
places
I
in
guess.
America. Yes, I do like New York. I think I'd probably be starting in LA from a network
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah, just to get yourself known.
Exactly. That's sort of I don't know whether I'll be there long term. I've got no aversion to LA. I'd quite like to live there. They've got a similar climate to where I'm from.
Yeah.
But I would like to also have a base in Australia and then be able to come back and forth, because I do miss my family a lot.
Have they been to Canada yet?
They have. They not since before COVID, but they were here in March 2020.
They just barely got in before COVID.
Yeah, yes. Everyone's being called home, and they're like, yeah, we'll leave it a couple of days. They were fine. They weren't about to miss out on their trip. I mean, everything was closed, but they were fine. They were it's only a couple of days that they weren't going to.
Well, they were there to see you anyway.
Yeah, they were like, I don't care. We'll just get takeaway and that's fine. So, but we were so lucky because we were then Australians were then locked out of Australia for 2.5 years. So I didn't get to see them again for 2.5 years.
Yeah, I didn't realize that they closed it down for that long.
Yeah, nobody could get out and nobody could get in. Very little exception.
I talked to an actor that right during COVID, and he had actually taken on a role as a COVID supervisor. So for some of the sets, that he was working on, he was actually one of them that was in charge of making sure that everybody was following policy. I knew that Australia had pretty strict guidelines, but I didn't realize they just shut everything down for that long.
Yeah, not many people did. Not many people did, but there was sort of a 50,000 person wait list, and they just wouldn't let people in or out. Like horrific stories of people trying to get to funerals and see loved ones, and even people who had citizenship in other countries, they wouldn't let out.
Yeah, that's terrible. Yeah, you think they'd let them leave, but maybe tell them you can't come back.
Yeah, and they said we don't need to come back. They still wouldn't. It was a lot of very strange decisions around that time. But my family was lucky to come over just before then, and hopefully they'll come back next year. Yeah. But I've been back to Australia 4 times in the last 12 months. Oh
my goodness.
What? If you lock me out, I'm coming back.
That's good though, because there's nothing like going home.
Exactly. And they're just a lot of events sort of happen to fall every 3 months basically. So, we just, sold our kidneys to pay for the flights and made it work.
See, now if you'd kept that outfit from Thor, you could have worn that home. It'd be very triumphant.
That's right.
Back.
That's exactly right. I'm going to try to get onto the production and see if they have it. I'll just call up Chris. I'm sure he'll remember.
I'm sure he'll if he's not doing push-ups, he might.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Greta, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time.
Thank you.
Great. I'm excited to see what you have coming next.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And for you too.
Well, I appreciate that. And
yes.
Who knows?
Who knows?
5 years ago, I didn't think I'd be podcasting, but here we are.
Exactly. Exactly right. Yeah. Who knows what the next 5 years will hold?
That's exactly.
Yeah.
So a couple of little things before we go. Anything else that you're working on that we can keep an eye out for?
Not currently. Not currently. That's coming out.
Yeah. Okay. So that's good though, because you're wide open. So if that
Yes,
company comes
yes.
along, you're ready.
There are a few possibilities, but nothing's locked in, so I can't really say more. But it's exciting. I'm definitely waiting to get the release date for season 3 of Escaping Denver, which is imminent.
Well, they can hold off for a little bit because that'll give me time to catch up.
You've got time. Jump on there. Apple and Spotify have both seasons 1 and 2.
No, I'm going to. That'll be great. So, okay. So last thing, where can we find you on social media?
Instagram, Greta.Carew-Johns.
Yep. Yeah. You came right up when I put that in. It's as soon as you put Greta C, pops right
comes up. Perfect. There you go. Greta C, everyone.
It also comes up on IMDb.
Yes, you can jump on
the C and pops you up.
Oh, come on. Yes.
That's pretty good because, if you put in Michael and a W, I guarantee you I do not come up.
Yeah, there are a lot of them.
If you type the whole name in, I'm number 8.
Oh, but 8's a great number.
I was like, hey, that's higher than I thought it would be.
Yeah, that's right. It's an even number.
Yeah, I was okay with it. I'm like, all right. I was assuming I'd be down in like the 30s or somewhere, so I was happy with it.
Well, 8's great. Under 10, top 10. I mean, put it that way.
Top 10. That's what I told everybody. I was like, I'm top 10.
Top 10.
Top 10.
They're like,
Michael Wall, IMDb.
Google me.
They're like, what is IMDb? Well, Greta, you have to come back when you get that next project.
I would love to. I'd love to share it with you.
Yeah, that'd be great because we want to hear about it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Okay, hold on one second. Yep. All right, so Greta Carew-Johns. I mean, she was terrific. I was a fan of hers before we got on here, but I'm a bigger fan now. She's just so nice, and she was really understanding with me. I had the worst earache last week when we were going to do this podcast, and I probably could have got through it, but I'd get those sharp pains, and I could just feel myself kind of wincing. And I was like, well, that's not going to be a great podcast. So I didn't want to shortchange her, and she was nice enough to come back on, and she was terrific. Please do your best to support her. She's really fairly new to acting. Left being a lawyer to become an actress, and is just really getting started. But she's talented, and she's everything I've seen her in. She has been really, really good. So keep your eye out for Greta. The Pregnancy Scheme, I believe, is still showing on Lifetime, so you can check her out there, and definitely check out the Escaping Denver podcast. Heard really good things about it. It's definitely one that I'm going to put at the top of my list to listen to. I love the audio dramas. Those of you that have been watching the podcast for a while know that we did an audio drama called The Last Saturday Night that dealt with, it was kind of positive stories about how people dealt with the pandemic. Pretty funny. Had an amazing cast. We had Sherilyn Fenn. It was one of Ed Asner's last roles. Tim Russ helped us out with it. Eric Roberts. The cast was amazing. Everybody in it you'll recognize. So if you're looking for a good audio drama after you listen to Escaping Denver, check out The Last Saturday Night. I think you'll like it. And apologies that you got to put up with me attempting to act for a couple episodes. Just put up with that. The rest of it's awesome. You'll enjoy that. Last Saturday Night. If you're finding us for the first time and you liked it, we could really use your support. It's easy to do. It's free. If you prefer to watch, it's our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Just hit that subscribe button. Really help us out. It's free. If you're listening, wherever you're listening to your podcast at, just subscribe there. That'll help us as well. We put out episode 620 today. We've been doing this for about 4.5 years, a little over 4.5 years. So 620 is a lot of episodes, and there's so many good guests. I guarantee you'll find somebody that you're already a fan of or that you'll become a fan of with that. So you can find all 620 episodes, audio and video, on our website, meistercon.com. So definitely check that out as well. And it'll let you know if we're doing anything in studio, if we're going on location, covering a convention, anything we have going on, be on the website, meistercon.com. Thank you guys so much. Till next time. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. I'm once again here to ask for your support. It's been a big year for the Too Opinionated podcast. Back in February, we got to live out a dream, moderate for William Shatner here in our hometown. In May, we passed 100,000 downloads on our YouTube channel, and we followed that up in June with 50,000 downloads on the audio side. We recently posted our 600th episode, which is pretty good volume for just a father and son operation. You know, not too many podcasts can keep that volume up. We've been doing this now for 4.5 years, 600 plus episodes. We recently hit 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, which is a really big deal for us because we've always gotten the views, but have struggled to get people to subscribe. So that 1,000 was a big deal for us. And best of all, we were recently named one of the top podcasts on IMDb, which is the entertainment database. You know, those that are ahead of us, we came in at number 82. Those that are ahead of us are bigger companies like Disney, mostly Marvel, and Joe Rogan, that type of podcast. So for us, being just a small West Virginia father and son podcast, to be in the top 100 out of 15 million, it's a pretty big deal for us. So thank you for everything you've done for us so far. Got a couple little ways, though, that you can help us, and they're free, and they're really easy. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel yet, please go to YouTube. It's under MeisterCon Pod. Just hit subscribe. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. Really helps us a ton. And maybe even more important, if you could go to imdb.com, look up the Too Opinionated podcast, and just look around the page. Just having that traffic on the page really helps us out. So that's a couple easy ways that you can support us, even if you're not listening or watching all of the time. And we want you to listen and watch, because I think that our guest list, I would put up against anybody, any other show, podcast, anybody out there. I think our guest list holds up. So please check us out. You probably will find somebody that you like, or maybe somebody that you didn't know you liked, but kind of discovered them on there. There's tons of that. If you're into music, we have that too. If you like books, we've got authors on there. If you're more into what goes on behind the scenes in the entertainment world, you know, we've got producers, directors, video artists, anything you can think of that happens behind the scenes, we've had them on the show. So definitely check us out. Thank you guys so much. Until next time. Bye, everybody.